He's one of the world's most enigmatic, most controversial, and most consequential living political figures. To some, he's a hero. To others, he's little short of a devil. Who really is Gerry Adams?
We have, at a human level and a personal level, suffered in the cause of the conflict.
Adams was born here in West Belfast 3 years after the end of the Second World War. His biographers mostly agree that he joined the IRA as a young man. One of them says at 16. His father was an IRA man. He came from a very Republican family. It was a natural thing to do. This was in 1965, before the Troubles broke out later in Northern Ireland. He became involved in the civil rights movement. He became a prominent figure in both of those organisations. Ultimately, he would be interned by the British. He would escape. He'd be re-interned, and he'd be released at the request of the IRA to take part in secret talks with the British government in London as a young representative of this revolutionary movement.
Well, it's one of those things, Eamon. I mean, there is an armed conflict here. The armed conflict arises from the British presence here.
Gerry Adams never went to university, but he was described by a British minister as a man of superior intelligence. From a very early point, he was recognised by the British military, by government ministers, by the Irish government, and by his Republican colleagues as somebody who was exceptionally smart. He was also a uniquely strategic thinker. He was someone who taught his colleagues to think in decades rather than simply in years. He realised that this was going to be, from the IRA's perspective, a very long war. Victory was not around the corner, as some of his colleagues thought at that point. Adams was also someone who was feared both by British ministers and by Irish ministers. They ultimately banned his voice, taking an exceptional legislative step to stop the public hearing his words on television or on radio. Adams was charged with IRA membership in 1978, but the case against him was incredibly weak. It fell apart very quickly. He has always denied, as he did in court that day, ever being in the IRA. None of his biographers and no serious historian accepts that denial. Most historians say that it's because of Adams' IRA background that he had the cachet to be able to persuade that movement to ultimately move further and further from violence, closer and closer to politics, ultimately decommissioning its weapons. Adams' philosophy became, and the IRA accepted, that Irish unity could only come about through the ballot box, not at the end of a gun.
It's up to the two governments, and the British government is the one with jurisdiction in this part of the island, and it's up to John Major. And when the President goes back to the USA, John Major needs to emulate the example which he has been set.
There is enormous evidence that Gerry Adams was central to building the IRA and to its deadly successes. But without him, it's questionable as to whether that organisation would have ended the killing when it did.
Adams has always said that his role was solely within Sinn Féin. He says it was in his position as Sinn Féin president that he was able to persuade the IRA to give up the killing. Adams now says that the IRA was justified in killing people up to 1998, but that some of what it did was, quote, reprehensible.
He was also the person who built Sinn Féin into the enormous political organisation it is today, the biggest political party on the island of Ireland and the wealthiest. But he's somebody who has had a very difficult relationship with unionism in Northern Ireland. David Trimble worked quite pragmatically with Martin McGuinness. He also worked with Gerry Adams, but he never really trusted him. He viewed him as sanctimonious, as scheming. In 1986, Gerry Adams told an English church magazine that he couldn't get through life without being prayerful. The magazine put to him that many Christians would wonder why Sinn Féin couldn't go from simply regretting murder to condemning murder. What Adams said was very insightful. He said, "I think these questions of morality are very difficult and vexed ones for all of us. In that answer, he gave away more than perhaps he thought. Most people would not regard the question of murdering innocent civilians as a vexed question of morality. To Gerry Adams, killing people to achieve his ultimate goal of Irish unity was legitimate. He expressed regret for some of the IRA's actions, for things that even he couldn't defend. But ultimately, when the IRA stopped killing, for Gerry Adams, it wasn't a moral issue, it was a tactical, political move.